let's move on, and we'll kind of get back into the Kickoff Classic here a little bit later. But our typical like college baseball recap from the weekend. I mean, I can kind of run through some of these scores, and if you guys have anything you want to add, as always, just feel free. But Northwestern on Friday beat Illinois 5-4. Illinois beat them 11-6 in their second game. Illinois State defeated Belmont 8-5. Illinois Chicago beat Southern Illinois 17-6. Eastern Illinois beat Lindenwood 5-4. Western Illinois beat Southern Indiana 15-5. SIUE defeated Morehead State 12-6. And Drew, am I wrong? Did you go to Southern Indiana, or what's?
No, Indiana Southeast.
Indiana Southeast. Okay.
Yeah, I know, you easily mistakable.
Okay.
But no, yeah, Southern Indiana was a long time like a D2, a really good D2. They moved into D1. Indiana Southeast, where I went, is an NAIA.
Okay.
But good
Gotcha.
Baseball everywhere down there, Gavin. Like, yeah. So.
No, I saw that come through. I'm like, I think that might be where Drew went, but I wasn't for sure. I couldn't remember exactly.
Looking at your notes, and it looks like Brazil had a huge weekend, sweeping Morehead State. I might be stealing your thunder for Saturday, Sunday, but it's just kind of cool seeing that, especially after we were posted up in SIU Edwardsville backyard for the last 4 to 5 days last week watching games, and then to see them go on the road and get a sweep. And was that on the road, or am I mistaken with that? I might need to look that up.
100% certain if they were away or home, but
I'm kind of second guessing myself. They might have been home, because typically that's one of the venues we sometimes use for a day or two down there. But big weekend for them regardless.
Yep. And then just a couple more scores on Saturday. Northwestern beat Illinois again 14-4, so they won that series 2-1. Southern Illinois beat UIC 5-4 and 10-9. Eastern Illinois beat Lindenwood 4-3. And then on Sunday, Illinois State beat Belmont 14-2. So they won their series against Belmont 2-1, I believe, or maybe it was just 2-0. I think it was 2-1. And then Hammett, you've got a nugget here about your alma mater, Lewis, if you want to
fire me up here.
Yeah,
let's go.
Little D2 action. They're on a 10-game win streak, 15-5 overall and 10-2 in conference. My dad has been keeping me all up to date on it. He'll text me like the math. He's like, all right, they got this many games left at home left. They got a good tough schedule left, but if they can do this, then they'll be in the conference tournament, blah, blah, blah. He's a math guy, so he's been keeping me up to date on that. But a couple of Illinois guys have really been absolutely tearing it up for him. Mikey Kosen, that was a year before I first got here, Drew, so I never got to see him, but you speak really highly of him. Has always hit. He's hitting .488 for him right now, leading the team. And then George Bilecki, a Marist 2022 grad, I was around for him, so I got to see him in high school. He's hitting .397 with 11 home runs. 11 home runs in 20 games, so that's pretty crazy stuff.
He was always an interesting one for me in high school too, Pete, because he was a two-way guy. Left-handed arm, and I kind of like both, similarly. And then to see how much that bat has ticked up, because I don't even know if he's pitching right now. He might just be straight up a position player. But man, 11 home runs this early in the season, that's in 20 games. That's a huge, huge number. So good things happening down there in Romeoville at the alma mater. Good stuff.
Yeah, so like we talked about at the beginning, now that the high school season has started, we, similarly to our college baseball recaps, let's talk about some high school baseball recaps now. And I think the first thing we want to mention is probably the Power 25 and maybe some teams that are off to a pretty good start. So, Tyler, if you want to kind of take us through that, or Drew, whoever, go ahead.
Tyler, you can absolutely take us through it. My biggest note on it is just Power 25 updates. We're not going to update the rankings here for a little while. Pretty much every year. And I mean, this year is a little different because of how nice the weather's been. Teams are actually able to play some games. But I see here, Providence Catholic, they haven't even played a game. They haven't scheduled a game just because of probably years past. They know those always get rained out or, weather dependent. So it makes no sense to try to update the rankings this early when we haven't gotten a full slate of games. We haven't gotten a full resume yet for these teams, and I guess we won't for a long time, but we at least need to get a handful of games under our belt. We'll have to see how this week holds up, how many teams actually play, get multiple games under their belt, see what we do next Sunday and Monday for the update. But yeah, just for now, kind of just touching on some of these teams, who's hot, for good performances that are maybe popping. But yeah, Tyler, if you want to just run down any noteworthy teams that maybe were in the Kickoff Classic or not, but are in the Power 25.
Yeah, so just there's a handful of teams here that got off to really good starts last week. Number 2, Edwardsville, which I'm sure we'll touch on quite a bit this podcast, but they were 3-0 last week down there. At the Kickoff Classic, you got number 5, Libertyville, 2-0 start. Number 9, Manuka, 3-0 start. Number 10, New Trier, who was down at Kickoff Classic, 2-0-1 start. Number 11, St. Lawrence, 2-0 start. Number 13, Mount Carmel, 2-0 start. Number 16, Glenwood, they were also down at Kickoff Classic, 2-0 start. Number 17, Nazareth, 3-0 start last week. Number 20, Triad, who we'll also touch on quite a bit, 3-0 start down there as well in the Kickoff Classic. And number 22, Hampshire, 2-0 start. But also, I think Hammett shot this note over to us. Just from us doing daily roundup, we kind of see, what's going on elsewhere across the state day to day with scores. But Revis might be a team to watch. 1-3 start, but kudos to them for their scheduling. Scheduled games against Naz, Brother Rice, and Mount Carmel. They lost those 3 games, but they were all really close and competitive games. So kudos to them, man. They're clearly not afraid to play, some of the best competition in the state. And I would say that's probably going to help pay off towards the end of the year, right? It helps you be battle tested early on in the season, and then ideally it probably makes their conference games later in the year not as challenging. So.
Well, I mean, they made a run last year. They made it to sectionals last year. They bring back Martin Villagomez, who's a really good arm. Johnny Leeson, they got some pieces over there. So they're a team to watch for sure, and they've had some, success in the past. So definitely a team to keep watch on here soon.
And Tyler, I don't know if you want to add to Mount Carmel. I know you told us that there were some pretty good pitching outings from Ellen Tenney and Matisse.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of touched on it last week when we did our, Power 25 initial breakdown. We mentioned how, with losing Ian Tosi, Connor Ellen Tenney and Jake Matisse were going to have to step up and really take over being the ace of that staff. And they threw the ball really well against Lane Tech over the weekend. They combined for 8 strikeouts over 7 innings. They only allowed 1 run. They beat Lane Tech 4-1 on Saturday. So really good to see that they're off to hot starts. Ellen Tenney especially, I believe he struck out 5 over 3 innings of work. So, yeah, big shout out to those guys.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at some scores now from around the state. I mean, these obviously there was a ton of games, so this is just kind of some of the more notable highlights or things like that. But down at the Kickoff Classic, St. Joe Ogden beat Columbia 3-0. Nolan Early threw 4 innings, struck out 4, allowed 2 hits, and I think we'll probably get into some of this stuff. I mean, you might hear this multiple times. But Champaign Central won 8-2 over O'Fallon, and one thing that I just thought was notable, Patrick Kennedy threw 3.2 innings, struck out 7, allowed no runs, and we had his fastball up to 88, which I know he's always kind of been that low 80s guy, but he moved pretty well, and I mean up to 88 now. It's good to see his velo's ticking up, and yeah, go ahead, Pete.
Tyler was there for this convo, I believe, as well. His mom came up to us and was asking us about his outing. Very nice lady. She was super excited because 88 was a PR for him. So nice. We always love to see that, especially that early in the year with it being chilly like that. Man, I mean, when it gets a little hotter, I'm not going to get him too hyped up, but we could start seeing some bigger numbers out of him throughout the spring.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Just with some of the numbers we saw, it wasn't the warmest of temps at times this past week. So, but no, that's a great shout because I'm going to have a similar note on a guy I'd talk about later.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's a good note for just Champaign Central's club, to have an arm like that because we like their team. We saw them. They're scrappy. Coach Staub does a great job with those guys. So that to me just kind of elevates the level of their club as well when you're able to throw out an arm that's up to he struck out 7 and 3 2/3. I don't think 7 and 3 2/3.
It was a little, yeah. I mean, but he's super athletic. I mean, I'm going to talk about him later, but I was pretty in on it. I think it's got a chance to pop in college.
Nice.
And I think probably, and I might be wrong in saying this, but just personally, the biggest takeaway from the kickoff classic was Edwardsville beating Normal Community 11-0. Like that was you blow them out. Like, and I mean, we value Community's team. You know, we think they have a pretty good roster, and I think it just shows how good Edwardsville is. To be honest, I mean, Joe Chirotto through 3 innings didn't give up a run, struck out 6, and only allowed 2 hits.
Well, I think to your point, when you look at these teams and you look at the scores, okay, like it can be super deceiving. If Edwardsville played Normal Community and Normal Community threw their 7th best arm, or if Edwardsville threw their 7th best arm. But Edwardsville is going out there throwing Joe Chirotto, and Normal's coming with Gavin Swartz. You know, those are 2 of their top arms on both clubs. And then for Edwardsville to do that, beat them 11-0, I just speak to exactly what you're talking about, Gavin. Like, that's a extremely high quality win, and it speaks to just how dynamic and talented that Edwardsville club is. And I know we'll talk about it, but that's the other thing too. Like, you can look at all these scores, and I do it with college baseball as well. It's like, who is on the mound? Who is starting the game? Because that's a huge indicator, you know, of at least like how should you view that game and that win and that quality. And that's something that we try to look at when we do Power 25 stuff. And we look at the wins, losses. It's okay, who was pitching? You know, did one team play 7 games in 1 week and they're on their, you know, the last of their arms, and is one team all loaded up and they're throwing their 1 and 2 at them? Like, because it does play a huge factor.
Yeah. And then, you know, just kind of running through it now. Lane Tech beat Loyola Academy 4-3. Joe Kelly, 12 strikeouts and 5 innings pitched for Loyola. So shout out to Joe for that. Good outing there. Oswego defeated Effingham 13-2. Big game for Cam Jenkins. We'll get into that later. Number 6, Brother Rice defeated Revis 4-1. Braden McKendrick threw 4 innings, struck out 4, got the win. Number 24, St. Charles East defeated South Elgin. Nathan Beers, Gavin Fussone, if I'm saying that right, and Nick
I think it's
Santelli.
Fuscone. There's supposed to be a C in there.
Fuscone,
Yep.
Sorry about that. They threw a combined no-hitter. And then again, Edwardsville beat number 12, Joliet Catholic, at the Kickoff Classic. Again, we'll probably talk about that. Joe Chirotto, 2 hits on the day, RBI, a run, and that game was 5-4. Number 10, New Trier beat number 14, Mascoutah, 12-6. Glenwood beat McCracken County, a Kentucky team, 4-3. Really big game out of Dylan Huff on both sides of the ball. Again, we'll talk about that.
No, that was one too where Glenwood had to come from behind and had some heroics late in that game. Yeah,
and then O'Fallon beat number 18, Morris. We'll get into that one later. I was at that game. Dunlap beat U-High, normal U-High, 11-2. Big game out of Davis Weeks and Eli McConaughey. McConaughey had 3 innings pitched, no runs, 5 Ks and a walk. And then Weeks had a triple, double, single, and 2 RBIs. St. Rita beat Marist 9-3. And then Willowbrook defeated St. Patrick 8-1. And big game out of Jory Crocker, 3 for 3, 3 runs, and 5 stolen bases.
5 stolen bases is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That you're stealing first and second multiple times, and then you're stealing another bag as well. Like, I don't know if he reached base 4 times, like if it was 3 for 3 with a walk or something, but like that's an absurd number. So kudos to Jory Crocker out there.
And just to add to these scores and stuff,